everyone. Thank you for joining my session today on how a PIM can help streamline your B2B business. With respect to today's agenda, initially we'll talk about some of the terminologies in the PIM ecosystem, and then I'll walk you through on why you need a PIM in the first place. And I'll also give you some insights in terms of the adoption of PIM in the B2B ecosystem. And then I'll also give you additional insights specifically on choosing the right PIM for your business. And eventually we'll talk about FlexiPIM as a solution offering. So I would like to start off with a quote, which says, the first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. And this is a famous quote from Bill Gates, and he doesn't really need a mention, but then he's the co-founder of Microsoft and a business magnate, and he's also a philanthropist. And this is a very interesting quote. And we'll, as part of the next few slides, we'll look on how you can really work on the efficiency part of it, and then eventually see on how the automation can be applied on top of that. I would like to give you all a quick gist about myself. So I'm Praveen, and I work as a solution consultant at DCCAP. So I've been here for around 4 years, and prior to this, I've been with Amazon for over 7 years. And currently, I work with the FlexiPIM team as a solution strategist. And I also closely work with the distribution community, and I also work with B2B and B2C customers, but then with a specialization more on the B2B side of business. And I'm also a PMP certified professional. So now let's look at what a product information management system is. So once you generally look at a product information management system, and as you're considering options, these are some of the terminologies that you would keep coming across. And I was initially wondering on what were these when I was initially in the taking care of FlexiPIM. But then I just wanted to give you a quick insight so that you get much better clarity as we go along. The first one is PLM or product lifecycle management. So this is more of an internal process, right? So this is to do with more with the CAD drawings and all of that, and basically the physical product manufacturing part of it. And then with respect to ERP's enterprise resource planning, and this is something you would be aware of in terms of how it helps with your business. And master data management, for some businesses, it might apply where they are trying to consolidate all of the data and centralize them. And it need not be just product specific, right? It could be other data as well. So that's where an MDM comes into picture. And then you would keep hearing PIM, PCM, and PXM every now and then. PIM is product information management system, and it has evolved a long way. So initially, so with respect to PIM, it is dated a decade back, I would say. So that's when it started off, but then it has transformed a long way. So initially, it was used to just manage the information. So right now, it is also about the content, which could be the assets part of it, which could be images, videos, which is part of the ecosystem as well. And then PXM is more of personalizing to your customers. So for instance, if you're having multiple channels, you're having a website, and maybe you're having Amazon as a channel, for instance. In that case, you might want to give customers specific information based on what they're trying to accomplish. So that is where PXM comes into play. And these are early days, right? But then with respect to PXM, so there is also research in terms of how that can cater to even individual customers, even within the same channel. So that's where a PXM comes into picture. And with respect to DAM or digital asset management, so a lot of companies have them as a standalone product where they could maintain all of their assets. It could be their specification documents or images or videos and all of them. And in today's world, all of that is also getting into the PIM, so that you just get rid of one other system so that you could centralize all the information in one place. And with respect to channels, it could be multiple things. It could be e-commerce channel, it could be your POS channel, it could be marketplaces based on what your needs are, or even it could be your print or marketing channel. So that's where that comes into picture. And the next one is on content aggregators or data providers. So with respect to the product data you might have, so sometimes you might have enriched information in-house, but in a lot of cases, you might want to lean on a third party data provider who would be providing all of this information, and then you would be processing that over before you target it to the multiple channels. So that's where this comes into play. So this would give you a good understanding for ease of context. So within the next few slides, I'll be talking about the PIM. So, but then it will be having the PCM and PXM capabilities as well. So why do you need a PIM in the first place? So that's a question you might have, right? So you might be using a spreadsheet, you might be having a e-commerce system where you're already maintaining it. But then why do you really need a PIM? So the first one is multiple SKUs are cumbersome to maintain. That is very obvious, right? So it is erroneous to have all of them in a spreadsheet, and then making edits is also not easy, and collaborating is also equally difficult. And you could centralize all of your content and assets over here. So that is one of the major use case. And then you could have channel specific product data. So as I had mentioned, so for e-commerce, it could be completely different. While for maybe one other channel that you might have, it could be completely different. Maybe a POS channel could be completely different. And then it helps with increasing your team productivity, which is obvious. And that would help you to accelerate your time to market, and then eventually elevates your customer experience and then helps drive revenue as well. So I would like to give you a quick insight in terms of some of the most sought after features of a PIM. And I've come up with this list based on the feedback that I've got from customers and based on research that I've done online. So the first one is the product data enrichment. So this is the key reason on why you would be on a PIM, right? So making sure that you're able to enrich your product information and do bulk operations. Maybe within an ERP, it could be limited. You could enrich that within a PIM. And you could basically have support for all your major attributes, right? So within an ERP, there are things you cannot do. Maybe you might have a select or a multi-select or a metric-based attribute, which you cannot really maintain within an ERP in some cases. So that's one of the use case. And it helps with multiple language support. So in case if you're having multiple locales or multiple websites, you could still maintain all of them within a PIM. And the multi-channel syndication. So this is something we spoke about. So it could be e-commerce, mobile POS systems, or it could be your marketplaces as well. And inbound connectors is one of the important. We spoke about the content aggregators would be providing that information that could be automated. And in some cases, you might want to lean on the initial information from ERP and then want to enrich it within a PIM. And there is also going to be the supplier information, which you're getting time and again, which you could still maintain within a PIM. And with respect to asset management, we spoke about that. And the asset management is not just videos and images. It could be even your specification documents as we think about it. And exhaustive role management. So this is what helps with the collaboration, which we spoke in the previous slide. So you could have multiple people working on the same product, but then they could be doing different things based on what access and permissions you might have. So I just want to give you a quick workflow in terms of how a PIM is leveraged in the B2B space, right? So initially, the basic information comes in from the ERP into a PIM, and then the supplier information is fed in, and the content from the content aggregators is fed in, and then it is then leveraged across multiple channels. And it could also be your print or marketing channels, as I mentioned earlier. So you could be having your print material, you could be having your banners, it could be in gigabytes of data which you want to maintain, so that it is easier for you to collaborate by just sending a link rather than having it on a server location as such. And then it gives you the ease of circulating this information to your partners or your customers. So that is one of the major use case of having a PIM in place. So as we discuss about some of the basic features which is expected in the B2B community, and these are some of the other features which is requested, but then this is specific to a certain set of customers, but then thought I would put this across as well. So yeah, rollback option. So even though it's across all customers, so having that is very critical, but then a few PIM solutions offer them and few do not offer. With respect to rollback, so in case if you're making some edits and if you've made something by mistake, you can come back and revert it back. Even if you've made the change maybe a week back or a month back, you could still revert it back. So that's rollback. And inventory management is something some customers ask for, but they're able to allocate inventory even within a PIM. But then most use cases, ERP would be the single source of truth for that. And then having a rule-based engine is one other important use case. So you might want to automate a lot of things. So if you know that based on conditions, if X data is coming in, then process it and then send it as Y to one other channel. So you could have a rule-based engine. And workflow automation is also on similar lines where you can have different sets of approval mechanism. So that's where it comes into play. And you could also tap onto customer feedback. A good example could be you could be having customers putting in their feedback as part of their reviews. So in an automated fashion, you could pull on that reviews and then start working on it. So it gives you a good understanding, right? So you could think of it maybe in an Amazon channel if you are maybe making some returns, right? So you get to choose on why you're returning it. Maybe you mentioned that the product information is not accurate. So that gets fed in into the PIM, and that way you could easily manage that information and keep acting upon it seamlessly. And then with respect to the AI-based recommendations, this is more of an evolving field, I would say. So with respect to AI predictions in terms of how product edits needs to happen based on what feedback we are getting. So that is one other key aspect we can be looking at. So now that we have seen all of these aspects on what features are available and all of that, so there are a bunch of options available for you online, and choosing the right PIM for your business is even critical. So let's understand what are the criteria, and based on that, you can choose on what's the right PIM for you. So with respect to a PIM, there are multiple options. One is an on-premises or a self-hosted option where you have the application on your desktop, and then there's a SaaS-based model, which is something like a Slack, right? All of the customers get a similar set of features, and PaaS is more of a solution which is in between on-premises and SaaS, I would say. With respect to on-premises, the biggest challenges, so in case we have any updates, so it is it takes a lot of time, and then it has to be curated at a customer level, so which might not be a scalable process, at least as we move along. And then a SaaS-based product also has some constraint because not all customers have the same requirements, right? Some customers could have some custom requirements. So that is where a PaaS comes into picture, which is platform as a service. And within a PaaS-based architecture, you could still have a common feature set and then add on custom features for your customers. So choose on what is ideal for your use case and then go from that. And then the usability, again, that's the core reason on why you're using a PIM. See on how easy it is, how easy the UI is, and how easy you're able to make edits. And the next is content syndication and connectors. We spoke about this a lot. So this is one of the important aspects. So content syndication across multiple channels and having the right connectors to do that is very, very critical. And with respect to asset management, so there are a bunch of things. So one thing is you might just want to maintain assets within a PIM, or in some cases you might not even want to maintain that within a PIM. Some cases you might want to edit that information also on a PIM. So choose on what is ideal based on your requirements over here. And look out for role management and collaboration options, which is available in whatever PIM you're looking out for. And then also look at import and export protocols. Even though you self-manage a lot of things within a PIM, it is very important that you are able to import your supplier information and export some information back to your customers or partners. So that's very, very critical. And then the scalability aspect is one thing you should be thinking of. So right now you might be having some 10,000 SKUs. What would happen if you're moving up the lane to 25,000 SKUs? Is the PIM going to scale up, or what are the constraints you have within a PIM as you scale up? So those are things you should understand as you're proceeding with making the decision. And security and privacy is one of the most important things. So look at standards, what is being followed in terms of security and privacy, on how safe is your data. So those are things that you should be thinking of. And is your server getting shared between multiple customers? So those are things that you should be looking out for. And then obviously the return of investment is one thing you should be looking at. And the operational efficiency also goes hand in hand as you really think about it. If your team is enabled, so that's the best part that can happen with a PIM. And obviously the total cost of ownership in terms of upfront and ongoing costs. So now I would like to talk about FlexiPIM, which is our true B2B focused PIM solution, which is available in the market today. And with respect to FlexiPIM, you could centralize all of your product information in one place. It could be we have connectors for e-commerce systems, and then we have connectors for content aggregators and marketplaces as well. And with respect to ERPs as well, we have connectors where you're able to map them and even change the mapping down the line. And you can also make attribute restrictions. So maybe initially you want the information coming in, but then eventually you want that information not to be overwriting. A good example could be descriptions for products. So initially that might come from ERP, but then eventually you don't want that to be overwriting every single time. And here is a sneak peek into our digital asset management capabilities. So now that you had a look at our asset management capabilities, so we help with maintaining all of your content in terms of images, videos, PDF documents, and all of that. On top of that, we also provide capabilities for you to manage those information and make edits to them as required for your banners or print materials and all of that in a centralized location. So I would like to talk about some of the key highlights of FlexiPIM. So with respect to FlexiPIM, we support multiple languages and we have rollback options as we spoke about, and we have quick edit. So you could make edits even from the product listing pages. And then we also have options for bulk edit. You could have multiple conditions and you could filter information and then make edits on top of that. And we also have a rules-based engine, so which you can leverage out of the box. And we also have flexible import and export options, which means that you could basically import information in whatever format you're getting from manufacturers or even suppliers. And then you could map them within FlexiPIM before you import it. So that's where the flexible import comes into play. And you could do validation at an attribute level. So I could say that I could establish multiple conditions, right? I could say this number has to be within a range, or I could say this URL has to be following this pattern and all of that. And we have collaboration options as part of the role management. And we also have our own API for extensibility. So that's pretty much what I had for our session today. And thanks a lot for joining my session today. And in case if you might have any further questions, feel free to drop me an email or call me. And in case we want to have a quick tour of our product, just write us to info@flexipim.com and we should be able to get a demo for you. Thank you once again for your time today.